Hello there, my sleep fellows. Come a little closer and let the world slow down around you. Tonight's story is not one of rushing footsteps or loud spells echoing through stone halls. It is a quieter kind of magic, the kind that reveals itself only when the castle grows still and the lights, one by one, begin to dim earlier than they should. This is the story of an evening at Hogwarts when something small, almost unnoticeable at first, began to change. Not with a bang, not with alarm, but with a gentle shift. The candles burned softer, the corridors grew dim before their time, and the castle itself seemed to settle into a deeper sleep, as though it had decided, for reasons unknown, to rest sooner than usual. We begin at the end of a long day, when the last classes have finished, and the warm glow of evening begins to wrap itself around the castle. Outside, the sky is painted in soft shades of amber and fading blue, the sun slipping quietly behind distant hills. A cool breeze moves across the grounds, brushing through the trees and gliding past the tall windows, carrying with it a calm that feels almost like a whisper. Inside, the corridors of Hogwarts hum with a familiar comfort. Students pass by in small groups, their voices soft, their laughter gentle and unhurried. The stone walls hold the warmth of the day, and the floating candles above flicker peacefully, casting golden light that dances across the floor like quiet ripples. But tonight, something is different. If you listen carefully, you might notice it. A torch along the wall dims slightly sooner than expected. A cluster of candles lowers their glow, as if growing sleepy, and in the distance, a hallway that should be bright still settles into shadow just a little too early. It is not sudden, it is not alarming, it is simply unusual, the kind of change that makes you pause just for a moment and wonder if the castle itself is trying to tell you something, softly, gently, without words. Down in the great hall, the long tables are still filled, but the golden light above them feels calmer tonight, as though it has been turned down just slightly. The enchanted ceiling reflects the evening sky, but the stars begin to appear earlier than they should, tiny, quiet points of light forming before the last traces of sunset have fully faded. And through it all, there is a feeling, not of fear, not of urgency, but of stillness. A deeper stillness than usual, as if Hogwarts has taken a slow breath and chosen to hold it. Before we step further into this quiet mystery, let me gently invite you to settle in a little more. If you enjoy stories like this, soft, magical journeys through the wizarding world, you can like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join us again for more cozy bedtime tales. And if you wish, you can leave a comment sharing where you're listening from tonight, so this peaceful moment can feel shared even across distance. Now, take a slow breath in and let it out gently. Feel your shoulders soften, your thoughts begin to drift, because tonight the castle lights dim earlier than they should, and somewhere within those quiet, shadowed corridors, a gentle mystery is waiting to be discovered. The evening settled softly over Hogwarts, and within the warm glow of the Gryffindor common room, a quiet, cozy calm wrapped itself around everything like a familiar blanket. Near the fireplace, Harry Potter sat in his usual chair, his posture relaxed, his glasses reflecting the soft orange flicker of the flames. There was something about nights like this that always drew him into quiet thought. Not troubled thoughts, just gentle ones. The kind that drift slowly, like clouds passing over a calm sky. He wasn't reading, nor speaking, just watching the fire, as if listening to something only he could sense. Across from him, Hermione Granger sat with a book resting open in her lap. But unlike most evenings, she hadn't turned a page in quite some time. Her eyes lifted now and then, glancing toward the room, toward the windows, and once or twice toward the candles floating near the ceiling. "They're dimmer tonight," she said softly, her voice thoughtful rather than concerned. Harry looked up slightly. "The candles?" Hermione nodded. "Yes, and not just here. I noticed it in the corridor too. It's subtle, but different." On the rug nearby, Ron Weasley lay stretched out comfortably, one arm tucked behind his head. He let out a quiet yawn before replying, his voice warm with sleepiness. "Maybe the castle's just tired," he murmured. "Long day, loads of students. Even Hogwarts needs a break, doesn't it?" Hermione smiled faintly, closing her book gently, but not setting it aside completely. "Castles don't get tired, Ron." Ron gave a small shrug, eyes still half closed. "This one might." Harry couldn't help but smile at that. It wasn't entirely wrong in a way. Hogwarts had always felt alive, not in a loud or obvious sense, but in small, quiet ways. The shifting staircases, the moving portraits, the way certain rooms seemed to appear only when needed. And tonight, it did feel different. Harry turned his head toward the window. The sky outside had darkened more quickly than usual, the last traces of evening fading faster than they should. The shadows in the room stretched a little longer, the firelight flickering a little softer. "It's not just the candles," Harry said quietly. "It feels like everything's settling earlier." Hermione leaned forward slightly, her curiosity gentle but clear. "I noticed that too," she said. "Even the portraits seem quieter." Ron sat up just a little, rubbing his eyes. "Well, I'm not complaining," he said with a small grin. "Early night sounds perfect." Hermione gave him a look, half amused, half thoughtful, but didn't argue. For a moment, the three of them sat in comfortable silence, the fire crackling softly between them. Around the room, other students spoke in hushed tones, their voices blending into a calm background hum. The floating candles drifted lazily, their light warm, but undeniably softer than usual. Harry watched one of them closely. It flickered gently, then dimmed just a fraction more. Not going out, just lowering. And for a brief moment, Harry felt that same quiet sensation again, the one he couldn't quite name. Not worry, not fear, just a feeling, as though something in the castle was changing, slowly, gently, and waiting to be noticed. Hermione followed his gaze. "You see it too, don't you?" she asked softly. Harry nodded. Ron glanced between them, then back at the candle. "All right," he said. now a little more awake, though still calm. I'll admit, that's a bit strange, but even then, his voice held no urgency, only curiosity, because whatever was happening, it wasn't loud, it wasn't alarming, it was quiet, and that made it all the more worth understanding. For a while, the three of them remained in the soft warmth of the Gryffindor common room, watching as the evening continued to settle, perhaps a little more quickly than usual. The fire burned steadily, yet even its glow felt gentler, as if it too had decided not to shine quite as brightly tonight. Harry leaned forward slightly in his chair, his eyes still on the floating candles above. One by one, they drifted lower, not falling, not fading away completely, but dimming just enough to be noticed. It wasn't sudden, it was gradual, almost considerate. Hermione followed the movement with quiet attention. "They're not going out," she murmured. "They're choosing to dim." Ron shifted beside the fireplace, now fully awake, but still calm. "Candles don't choose things," he said, though his tone held more curiosity than doubt. Hermione tilted her head slightly. "In Hogwarts, they might." Harry stood slowly, his movements unhurried. "Let's take a look," he said. There was no urgency in his voice, just a quiet decision. The three of them stepped out of the common room and into the corridor beyond. The moment the portrait closed behind them, the difference became clearer. The hallway, usually lit with steady golden torchlight, was softer tonight. Not dark, but dimmer than it should have been at this hour. The torches along the walls flickered gently, their flames smaller, calmer, almost as if they were winding down. Ron glanced around. "All right, that's definitely not normal." Hermione walked closer to one of the torches, observing it carefully. "It's stable," she said. "No sign of malfunction, no extinguishing charm. It's just reduced." Harry looked down the length of the corridor. The shadows stretched farther than usual, pooling softly in the corners, not sharp or threatening, just deeper, like a quiet evening settling earlier than expected. "Let's keep going," Harry said gently. They moved through, the castle at an easy pace, their footsteps soft against the stone floor. As they walked, the same pattern revealed itself again and again. Corridors dimmed sooner than expected. Candles lowered their glow. Rooms that should have been bright still rested in soft shadow. They passed a tall window overlooking the grounds. Outside, the sky had darkened fully now, the stars shining clearly, too clearly for this time of evening. Hermione paused beside the glass. "The stars appeared early," she said. "That's not just the castle, that's the sky itself." Ron frowned slightly, though not in worry. "So, everything's going to bed early?" Harry didn't answer right away. He was listening again, not with his ears, but with that same quiet awareness that had been growing since the evening began. And then, it happened. A soft, almost musical sound echoed through the corridor. Not loud, not sharp, just a gentle tone, like the faint ringing of glass touched lightly by a fingertip. The three of them paused. "Did you hear that?" Ron whispered. Hermione nodded. "Yes, but it didn't come from any direction." Harry turned slowly, trying to place it. The sound didn't repeat, but it lingered faintly in the air, like an echo that hadn't fully faded. And then, something even stranger followed. The torches along the corridor dimmed again. Not all at once, not suddenly, but in a sequence. One, then the next, then another, each flame lowering slightly, as if responding to an unseen rhythm. Hermione's voice was soft, filled with wonder. It's synchronized. Ron blinked. With what? Harry looked ahead. At the far end of the corridor, where the light was now the softest, something shifted. Not a shadow, not a figure, just a subtle change in the air, like a ripple passing through still water. "Come on," Harry said quietly. They moved toward it, step by step, their pace calm, their breathing steady. The closer they came, the more noticeable the change became, not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle deepening of the quiet. The castle felt drowsy, not asleep, but close to it, as if it were preparing to rest earlier than it ever had before. When they reached the end of the corridor, they found themselves in a small, circular landing between two staircases. Usually, this space was brightly lit, with multiple torches casting overlapping shadows. Tonight, it was different. Only one torch remained at full brightness. The others had dimmed significantly, their flames small and steady. And at the center of the landing, there was something new. A faint glow hovered just above the floor, soft, pale, barely visible unless you were looking directly at it. Hermione stepped closer, her voice almost a breath. "What is that?" Harry crouched slightly, studying it. The glow wasn't solid. It looked like a thin layer of light, gently pulsing, like a heartbeat, but slower, calmer. Ron leaned in from behind. "It's not a spell I recognize." Harry extended his hand slowly, not touching it, just hovering above it. The moment he did, the glow responded. It brightened slightly, just for a second, and then the same soft, musical sound returned. This time, clearer. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a signal of danger. It was almost soothing, like a lullaby played on glass. Hermione's eyes widened. "It's reacting to you." Harry didn't pull his hand away. He kept it steady, his breathing calm. The glow pulsed again, and then it spread, not outward across the floor, but upward, rising gently into the air, forming a faint, shimmering veil. Within that veil, shapes began to form, not solid, not fully detailed, just impressions. A corridor, the same one they stood in, but brighter, candles glowing fully, students walking past, laughter, faint and distant, and then the same corridor, dimming, the lights lowering, the castle settling. Hermione whispered, "It's showing us what's happening." Ron frowned slightly, or why it's happening. The vision shifted again. This time, the glow showed something deeper, not just the corridor, but the castle itself. Layers of rooms, halls, staircases, all gently dimming, one after another, not shutting down, not failing, but resting like a wave of quiet moving through the entire structure. Harry watched carefully. "It's not random," he said softly. "It's intentional." Hermione nodded. "The castle is doing this." Ron tilted his head. "But why?" The glow flickered gently, and then it changed again. The vision faded slightly, becoming less about images and more about feeling, a calm, a quiet, a sense of something being preserved, as if the castle was protecting something or someone. The soft musical tone returned once more, and this time it carried a subtle pattern, 3 gentle notes, repeated slowly, like a signal meant to be followed. Harry stood. "I think it wants us to follow it," he said. Hermione looked at the glow, then back at Harry. "Follow where?" The glow shifted, drifting slightly toward one of the staircases, not quickly, not urgently, just guiding. Ron exhaled slowly. "Well, that's new," but even then, his voice held no fear, only curiosity. Harry nodded, calm and certain. "It's not trying to scare us," he said. "It's trying to show us something." Hermione gave a small, thoughtful smile. "Then we should listen." Ron adjusted his robes slightly, glancing at the dimmed torches around them. "All right," he said, "but if we end up somewhere strange, I'm blaming both of you." Harry smiled faintly, and together, without rushing, without hesitation, they followed the soft glow as it drifted gently up the staircase, leading them deeper into the quiet mystery of a castle that had chosen, for reasons unknown, to dim its lights early. The soft glow drifted upward along the staircase, never rushing, never fading, simply guiding, like a quiet thought that knew exactly where it wished to go. Harry, Hermione, and Ron followed at an unhurried pace, their footsteps light against the stone steps, their breaths calm and steady in the dimming hush of the castle. As they climbed, the light around them continued to soften. The torches lining the walls grew smaller in their glow, each flame lowering just enough to deepen the shadows without ever letting darkness take hold. It wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't frightening. It felt intentional, like the castle was dimming itself gently, the way someone might lower the lights before sleep. Ron glanced over his shoulder. "It's even dimmer up here," he murmured. Hermione nodded, her voice thoughtful. "Yes, but not in a failing way. Everything is still stable, just quieter." Harry looked ahead. The glow hovered near the top of the staircase now, waiting, almost patiently, as if it expected them to keep pace. When they reached the landing, they found themselves in a corridor they didn't often use. It curved slightly, lined with tall windows on one side and stone arches on the other. Usually, this hallway would be softly lit with floating candles. Tonight, only a few remained fully bright. The rest had dimmed to a gentle shimmer. Outside the windows, the sky had deepened into full night, but something about it felt unusual. The stars were not only visible, they seemed closer, brighter, as though the sky itself had leaned nearer to the castle. Hermione slowed her steps. "That's not normal," she whispered. Ron followed her gaze. "The stars look bigger." Harry stood still for a moment, watching. There was no movement in the sky, no streaking lights, no sudden changes, just a quiet, steady brightness, as though the night had arrived earlier and settled more deeply than it should have. The glow drifted forward again, moving towards the far end of the corridor. They followed. As they walked, the soft musical tone returned, not louder, not sharper, but clearer now. The 3-note pattern repeated gently, echoing through the stone like a lullaby meant only for those who were listening. Hermione tilted her head slightly. "It's guiding us with sound now, too," she said. Ron let out a quiet breath. "Helpful, I think." Harry kept his eyes on the glow. It had stopped once more, this time near a large arched window at the very end of the corridor. The space around it felt different, not colder, not darker, but deeper, the kind of quiet that makes everything else feel distant. Harry stepped closer to the window. Outside, the grounds of Hogwarts stretched into the night, dark trees, soft rolling hills, and beyond them, the faint outline of the Forbidden Forest. But the stars above them shimmered more brightly here, their light reflecting faintly on the glass. And then, the glow shifted again. Instead of hovering in front of them, it moved toward the window itself, and when it touched the glass, the world changed, not abruptly, not violently, but gently, like a veil being drawn aside. The window no longer reflected the grounds outside. Instead, it showed something else. Hermione inhaled softly. "It's a memory again, but this one felt different." The scene within the glass showed Hogwarts, but not as it was now. It was darker, not dimmed in a calm way, but naturally dark, as though all the lights had gone out. The corridors were shadowed, the candles extinguished, the castle completely still. Ron blinked. "That's not like tonight," he said quietly. "That's something else." Harry watched closely. In the vision, the castle stood in silence, no movement, no voices, no light. And then, slowly, one small glow appeared. A single candle, then another, each one lighting softly, one by one, spreading warmth back into the castle, not all at once, not in a rush, but gradually, as if the castle itself had chosen to wake its light slowly, carefully, gently. Hermione's voice was soft with understanding. "It's showing us a cycle," she said. "Darkness, then light returning." Ron frowned slightly. But why would it show us that? The glow pulsed faintly against the glass, and the vision shifted again. This time, the castle was not dark. It was dimmed, just like now. But within the dimness, something new appeared. Small points of light, faint, gentle, moving slowly through the corridors. Not candles, not torches, but something softer, like floating sparks. They drifted calmly, passing through walls, along staircases, through empty rooms. Harry leaned closer. "What are those?" Hermione watched carefully. "They don't look like spells or ghosts." Ron whispered, "They look peaceful." The sparks continued to move, unhurried, following paths that seemed almost familiar, like they knew the castle intimately, and as they moved, the dimmed lights around them didn't fade further. They stabilized, balanced, as if the dimming wasn't weakening the castle, but making space for these gentle lights to exist. Harry's voice was quiet. "The castle isn't losing light," he said. "It's sharing it." Hermione's eyes widened slightly. "Yes, it's redistributing it, lowering one kind of light to allow another." Ron tilted his head. "But what are those things?" The glow shimmered again, and the answer came, not in words, but in feeling, the The sparks were not objects, they were traces, echoes, not of people, but of moments, calm moments, quiet moments, the kind of stillness that builds up over time in a place like Hogwarts. Centuries of whispered conversations, peaceful evenings, silent walks through corridors. All of it gathered, all of it remembered, and now all of it moving. Hermione spoke softly, almost in awe. They're memories of calm, she said, stored in the castle itself. Ron blinked slowly. So, Hogwarts is full of quiet moments, and tonight it's letting them out? Harry nodded gently, because something needs them. The vision flickered, and then, for the first time, something new appeared within it. At the very center of the castle, deep within its structure, there was a space, not a room they recognized, not a place they had seen, just a quiet, central point. And there, the sparks were gathering, moving toward it, slowly, gently, as if answering a call. The glow at the window pulsed once more. The musical tone played. Again, 3 soft notes, steady and clear. Hermione stepped back slightly. That's where it's leading us, she said. Ron exhaled. Of course it is. Harry looked at the window one last time. The vision faded slowly, the glass returning to its normal reflection. The night sky, the distant trees, the quiet grounds. But the feeling remained, the understanding. The castle wasn't dimming by accident. It wasn't losing its light. It was gathering something deeper, something softer, something that only appeared when everything else grew quiet enough to notice. The glow drifted away from the window, moving faking into the corridor, waiting. Harry turned to Hermione and Ron. We follow it, he said calmly. Hermione nodded. Ron gave a small, steady smile. Yeah, we follow it. And together, in the softly dimmed corridor, under a sky that felt closer than ever before, they continued their quiet journey, following a mystery that wasn't growing louder, but deeper. The glow moved on from the window, drifting back into the corridor with the same quiet patience it had shown from the beginning. Harry, Hermione, and Ron followed, their footsteps slow and measured, as if they had all silently agreed that this was not something to rush. The castle around them continued to dim, not suddenly, not completely, but gradually, gently. Each torch they passed lowered its flame just a little more. Each candle softened its glow until the corridor felt wrapped in a calm twilight that did not belong to any specific hour. It was neither evening nor night, but something in between. Ron glanced upward at a floating candle as it dimmed slightly above his head. You know, he murmured, if this keeps up, we might not need to go to bed. The castle's already doing it for us. Hermione gave a soft smile, though her eyes remained focused ahead. It's not trying to make us sleep, she said. It's trying to create something. Harry nodded, quietly. Something that needs quiet. They turned down another corridor, one narrower and less traveled. The glow drifted ahead of them, pausing every few steps as if making sure they were still there, still listening. And the soft musical tone returned again. 3 notes, gentle, steady, familiar now. It echoed faintly through the stone, not bouncing or distorting, but settling into the air like a memory. Hermione slowed her pace slightly. "It's clearer now," she said. "The sound, it's guiding the movement of those sparks we saw." Ron looked around. "I don't see any sparks here." Harry did, not clearly at first, but as he focused, he noticed them, tiny, faint glimmers drifting along the edges of the corridor. They were subtle, almost blending into the dim light, but they were there, moving slowly, flowing in the same direction as the glow. "Hermione, look," Harry said softly. She followed his gaze, and after a moment, she saw them too. "Yes, they're here as well," she whispered. Ron leaned closer. "Where?" Hermione pointed gently. "Along the walls, near the floor. They're very faint." Ron squinted, then blinked. "Oh, yeah, I see them now." The tiny sparks moved like drifting dust in a beam of light, calm, unhurried, and purposeful. They did not scatter or flicker randomly. They followed a path, the same path the glow was leading them along. As they continued, the corridor began to feel quieter than before, not just in sound, but in presence. The usual distant noises of Hogwarts, the faint voices, the occasional footsteps, the shifting of staircases, had faded almost completely. It was as if this part of the castle had been gently set aside. Hermione spoke softly. "We're moving deeper," she said, "not physically, but into whatever this is." Ron rubbed his arm lightly, though not out of fear. "Yeah, it feels like the rest of the castle is further away." Harry listened carefully. The glow ahead pulsed once, softly, and then something changed again. The sparks around them increased, not suddenly, not in a burst, but gradually. More of them appeared along the corridor, drifting in the same calm direction. Their light was faint, but together they created a soft shimmer that moved like a slow current. The torches dimmed further, not extinguished, just lowered enough that the sparks became more visible. Hermione's voice was filled with quiet wonder. "The castle is dimming itself, so these can be seen more clearly." Ron nodded slowly, like turning off a lamp so you can see the stars better. Harry smiled faintly. "Exactly." They reached a staircase, not one of the grand moving staircases, but a smaller, older one, stone steps worn smooth by time, spiraling gently downward. The glow hovered at the top, waiting. The sparks flowed past it, moving down the staircase like a soft stream of light. Hermione stepped forward, first this time, her voice calm. "It's safe," she said. "It's just leading us further." Ron followed, a little more quietly than usual. "All right, but if we end up in the kitchens by mistake, I'm not complaining." Harry stepped down after them. As they descended, the air grew cooler, not cold, just deeper, the kind of coolness that comes with stone that has held centuries of quiet. The musical tone returned again. 3 notes. Now slightly clearer, almost closer. The sparks drifted around them, some passing gently by their shoulders, others moving along the walls. They did not touch them. They did not react. They simply continued. Harry watched one closely as it passed near his hand. For a brief moment, he felt something, not a memory exactly, but a feeling, a quiet laugh, a peaceful evening, a moment of calm, and then it was gone, drifting onward. Harry exhaled softly. "They're carrying something," he said. Hermione nodded. "Not full memories, just impressions." Ron blinked. That one felt like sitting by the fire. The doorway itself was simple. Stone frame, no door, no markings. But beyond it, there was a deeper glow, soft, warm, steady. Harry paused just before stepping through. He looked back at Hermione and Ron. Hermione gave a small, steady nod. Ron gave a quiet smile. "After you." Harry turned back, and in that moment, the castle felt completely still, not empty, not silent, but listening, waiting. The glow hovered beside him. The sparks flowed past him, and the soft music lingered in the air, not urging, not pushing, just guiding. Harry took a slow breath and stepped forward. Harry stepped through the doorway, and at once the atmosphere changed, not abruptly, not sharply, but with a soft shift, like stepping into a quieter layer of the same world. Hermione and Ron followed close behind, their footsteps naturally slowing as they entered the space beyond. The room they found themselves in was wide and circular, though not grand in the usual Hogwarts sense. There were no high banners, no long tables, no towering shelves. Instead, the space felt open, calm, as though it had been shaped not for activity, but for stillness. At the center of the room, a gentle glow rested, warmer than the drifting sparks they had followed, yet softer than torchlight. It pulsed faintly, steady and calm, like a slow heartbeat that filled the space without overwhelming it. Around that central glow, the tiny sparks continued to gather. They arrived quietly, one by one, drifting inward from unseen paths, settling into the light and dissolving into it without resistance. Ron let out a slow breath. "So this is where they've been going," he said softly. Hermione nodded, her eyes moving carefully around the room. "It's like a collection point," she whispered, "all those quiet moments being brought together." Harry stepped forward slowly, his gaze fixed on the center. The glow did not change as he approached. It did not grow brighter or dimmer. It simply remained steady, comforting, as though it had always been there. The rest of the room remained dim, but not dark. The walls were lined with smooth stone, curved gently inward, and here and there faint markings could be seen, almost like inscriptions, but worn so deeply into the surface that they felt more like impressions than words. Hermione moved toward one of them, brushing her fingers just above the stone. "These aren't spells," she said. "They're traces, like something has been here for a very long time." Ron glanced around, his voice low. "Feels older than the rest of the castle." Harry nodded slightly. "Or deeper," he said. The glow at the center pulsed once more, and for a brief moment, the soft musical tone returned. 3 gentle notes, clear and close, as if it now belonged entirely to this space. The sparks responded. They moved a little faster, not rushing, but with a clearer direction, flowing steadily into the center, merging with the warm light. Hermione watched carefully. "It's not just collecting them," she said. "It's holding them together." Ron tilted his head. "Why would it do that?" Harry didn't answer immediately. He stepped closer to the central glow, stopping just at its edge. The warmth there was gentle, almost like standing near a fire that gave comfort without heat. As he stood there, he felt something again. Not a vision, not a memory, but a quiet sense of presence. Not from outside, from within the room itself, as if this place was not empty, but aware. Hermione joined him, her voice thoughtful. "This isn't just a room," she said. "It's part of the castle, something it uses when it needs to balance itself." Ron crossed his arms loosely, his expression calm but curious. "Balance what?" Hermione looked at the sparks, then at the dimness beyond the doorway. "Light and quiet," she said. "Activity and rest." Harry's voice was soft. "Maybe the castle dims its lights to gather these moments." Ron blinked. "So instead of being bright and busy all the time, it chooses to slow down?" Hermione nodded. "Exactly." For a moment, the three of them stood in silence, watching the sparks drift inward, watching the central glow hold them gently, without change, without strain. Then, slowly, Hermione turned toward the edge of the room. "There's more," she said quietly. Along the curved wall, there were small alcoves, barely noticeable unless you looked closely. Each one held something different, not objects, but impressions. In one alcove, the air shimmered faintly, like the memory of a quiet conversation. In another, there was a soft warmth, like the echo of laughter near a fireplace. In another, a stillness so deep it felt like the end of a long, peaceful day. Ron stepped closer to one, tilting his head. "This one feels nice," he said, "like sitting after dinner when everything's calm." Hermione smiled gently. "Each alcove holds a different kind of quiet," she said. "Different moments the castle has kept." Harry moved toward another alcove. As he stood near it, he felt a sense of solitude, not loneliness, but peaceful aloneness, the kind that allows thoughts to settle, not crowd. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. "This place doesn't just collect," he said. "It remembers." Hermione nodded. "And it lets those memories exist without fading." Ron looked back toward the central glow. "So what do we do?" he asked. "Just watch it?" Harry considered that. The glow pulsed gently again. The musical tone played once more, soft, steady, familiar, not asking, not commanding, just present. Harry looked at Hermione and Ron. "I think we have a choice," he said quietly. Hermione met his gaze. "What kind of choice?" Harry glanced at the alcoves, then at the central glow. "We can leave it as it is, or we can become part of it." Ron raised an eyebrow slightly. "Part of it how?" Hermione understood first. "We can add something," she said softly. Ron blinked. "Add what?" Hermione's voice remained calm. "A quiet moment," she said. "Something we choose to leave here." Harry nodded slowly. The idea felt right, not required, not expected, but welcomed. The room seemed to listen. The glow remained steady. The sparks continued their gentle flow. Everything waited, not for action, but for choice. Ron looked around once more, then shrugged lightly, though his voice was softer than usual. "Well, If we're adding something, I suppose I can think of one good moment. Hermione smiled. Harry stepped closer to the center, and for a brief moment, all three of them stood together in that quiet space, each holding a small, peaceful memory, deciding, in their own time, whether to keep it or gently let it become part of the castle's calm. For a few quiet moments, none of them spoke. The circular chamber held them gently within its calm, the soft glow at the center pulsing with a steady, comforting rhythm. Around them, the tiny drifting sparks continued their slow journey inward, each one dissolving into the light as if returning home. Harry stood closest to the center, his gaze resting on the glow, his thoughts settling into a quiet stillness. It didn't feel like a moment that needed words. It felt like a moment that needed presence. Hermione stood beside him, her hands loosely folded, her expression thoughtful but peaceful. Ron lingered just behind them, calm in a way that came naturally only in places like this, places that asked for nothing and yet offered so much. The musical tones sounded again, 3 soft notes, clear, close, and this time it did not fade. Instead, it lingered gently in the air, like a question waiting for an answer. Hermione spoke first, her voice no louder than the soft glow around them. "It's waiting for us," she said. Harry nodded slightly. "Not for us to solve something," he replied, "just to understand." Ron shifted his weight slightly. "And what exactly are we supposed to understand?" he asked quietly. Harry didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked down at his hands. Then slowly, he closed his eyes. He let his thoughts drift, not searching for something important, not forcing anything to surface, just allowing whatever was there to rise gently. And after a moment, something did. A simple memory, not dramatic, not heavy, just quiet. A moment of sitting by the fire in the Gryffindor common room, doing nothing in particular, just feeling safe. Harry opened his eyes again. The glow at the center responded. It brightened, just a little, not sharply, not suddenly, but enough to be noticed. Hermione saw it immediately. "Harry," she whispered. Ron leaned forward slightly. It reacted. Harry stepped closer, slowly, carefully. He didn't raise his wand. He didn't speak a spell. He simply held that quiet memory in his mind. And then, without effort, it happened. A faint, soft shimmer rose from him, not visible in a sharp or startling way, but like a gentle mist lifting from warm air. It moved slowly, calmly, drifting toward the center of the room. The glow welcomed it, not pulling, not pushing, just allowing. The shimmer touched the light and dissolved into it. For a brief moment, the entire room felt warmer, not physically, but emotionally, as if something small and peaceful had just been shared. Hermione's voice softened. "It's not just collecting memories," she said. "It's building something." Ron nodded slowly. "Yeah, but what?" The answer came not in words, but in understanding. The glow pulsed again, and this time it expanded, not outward into the room, but inward, becoming deeper, richer, like a light that held layers within it. And within that light, something appeared, not a full vision, not a clear image, but a sense, a presence, the castle itself, not as walls and towers, not as corridors and staircases, but as something living, something aware, something that remembered. Hermione's breath caught softly. "It's Hogwarts," she whispered. Harry felt it too. The glow was not separate from the castle. It was part of it, a quiet center, a place where all the calm, peaceful moments, the ones too small to notice, too gentle to remember, were gathered and held, not lost, not forgotten, but kept. Ron's voice dropped to a near whisper. "So all those sparks, they're not just memories." Hermione finished the thought softly. "They're what keep the castle balanced." Harry nodded slowly. "The castle dims its lights," he said, "to make space for this." The glow pulsed again, and the understanding deepened. Hogwarts was not simply reacting. It was choosing to quiet itself, choosing to gather stillness, choosing to preserve calm, so that it would never be lost beneath noise and movement. And then, the final piece revealed itself. The glow shifted once more, and within it appeared a faint reflection. 3 figures, standing together, Harry, Hermione, Ron, not as they were now, but as part of the light itself. Ron blinked. "That's us." Hermione's voice was filled with gentle realization. "Because we're part of it now." Harry understood. It wasn't about solving the mystery. It wasn't about stopping the dimming. It was about becoming part of the balance. Each quiet moment added, each calm memory shared, each gentle choice contributing to something larger. The musical tone played again, 3 notes, but this time it felt complete, not repeating, not guiding, just finishing. Harry looked at Hermione and Ron. "We don't need to do anything else," he said softly. Hermione nodded. "It's already done." Ron let out a quiet breath, a small smile forming. Best kind of mystery, that. The glow at the center steadied. The sparks continued to drift inward. But now, everything felt complete. Not waiting, not searching, just existing. Harry took one last look at the light. Not as something separate, but as something they were now gently connected to. And in that quiet understanding, the mystery revealed itself fully, not as a problem, but as a truth that even in a place as vast and magical as Hogwarts, it is the smallest, quietest moments that hold everything together. For a little while longer, the 3 of them remained where they were, standing quietly within the soft, steady glow at the heart of Hogwarts. Nothing in the room asked them to move, nothing urged them to leave. The light simply held its calm rhythm, as though it knew that moments like this were meant to be felt fully, not hurried past. The tiny sparks continued to arrive, one by one, drifting gently into the center and dissolving into the warm glow. But now, there was no sense of something incomplete, no quiet question waiting for an answer. Everything felt settled. Harry let out a slow breath, his shoulders loosening as if he had been carrying something he hadn't even noticed before. Hermione stood beside him, her expression peaceful, her thoughts no longer searching, and Ron, who had been watching the glow with quiet fascination, gave a small, contented stretch. "Well," he murmured softly, "I think that might be the calmest adventure we've ever had." Hermione, smiled faintly, her voice warm, and perhaps the most important. Harry nodded. "We didn't need to fix anything," he said. "We just needed to understand it." The glow pulsed once more, soft, steady, complete, and then something subtle began to change. Not the center itself, but the room around it. The deeper shadows at the edges began to lift, ever so slightly. The dimness that had wrapped the space did not disappear, but it softened as though it was gently releasing its hold. The sense of stillness remained, but it was no longer gathering, it was resting. Hermione noticed first. "The room is easing," she whispered. Ron glanced toward the doorway. "So, does that mean we should go?" Harry looked at the glow one last time. It didn't pull them to stay. It didn't follow them. It simply remained, steady and complete, like a quiet heart that would continue beating whether they were there or not. "I think so," Harry said gently. They turned together, walking back toward the doorway at the same calm pace they had followed all along. As they stepped out into the corridor, the difference was immediate, but not dramatic. The castle had not suddenly brightened. It had simply balanced. The torches along the walls still burned softly, but now their light felt steadier, more even. The floating candles glowed gently overhead, no longer dimming further, no longer lowering. Ron glanced up. "They've stopped fading," Hermione nodded. "Because they don't need to anymore." Harry looked down the corridor. The tiny sparks were still there, but fewer now and slower, as if the flow had completed its purpose for the night. The soft musical tone did not return, not because it had ended abruptly, but because it had finished. They began walking back the way they had come, their footsteps light, their movements unhurried. The staircase felt less distant now, the air less deep, the quiet no longer layered but simple and familiar again. As they climbed, the castle seemed to welcome them back into its usual rhythm, not loud, not busy, just gently awake. Ron yawned softly, though there was a small smile on his face. "I don't know about you two," he said, "but I suddenly feel really relaxed." Hermione laughed quietly. "That seems appropriate." Harry smiled faintly, glancing at the torches as they passed. Their glow was warm now, steady and calm, not dimmed in uncertainty, but softened in balance. When they reached the upper corridor again, the tall windows reflected a night sky that felt right. The stars were still bright, but no longer unusually close. The evening had settled naturally, as though the castle and the sky had both found their proper rhythm again. Harry paused for a moment, looking out. Everything felt peaceful, not because something had changed dramatically, but because something had been gently restored. Hermione joined him at the window, her voice soft. "It's over," she said. Harry nodded. "Yes." Ron stretched again. "Good," he said lightly, "because I think I'm ready for bed now." Hermione smiled, and even Harry let out a quiet, warm laugh. There was no urgency to return, no lingering question, just a simple, comforting calm. And as they turned away from the window and made their way back through the softly lit corridors, the castle seemed to settle once more, not into silence this time, but into a quiet, steady rest, as though everything was exactly where it needed to be. And now, my sleep fellows, the castle rests once more. The quiet footsteps of Harry Potter, Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley fade softly into the distance, blending into the calm rhythm of Hogwarts. The corridors grow still again, the candles glow gently overhead, and the stone walls hold the warmth of the night like a quiet memory. Nothing rushes now, nothing asks for your attention. Everything simply settles. The lights of the castle, which dimmed so early this evening, now rest in a perfect balance, not too bright, not too faint, just enough to create a soft, peaceful glow that wraps around every hallway, every room, every quiet corner. And somewhere deep within the castle, that gentle center of calm continues to exist, not calling out, not changing, just holding, holding every quiet moment, every peaceful breath, every small feeling of comfort that has ever passed through these ancient halls. And just like that, you can feel it too. So now, take a slow breath in and let it out. Gently, let your shoulders sink a little deeper. Let your thoughts drift like those soft glowing sparks we followed, moving slowly, calmly, without needing to go anywhere at all. There is nothing left to solve, nothing left to understand. Only this quiet moment, warm, safe, and still. And just as the castle chose to dim its lights to protect its calm, you too can allow everything around you to soften. Let the noise fade. Let the day settle. Let yourself rest. Because here, in this gentle space, you are safe, you are calm, and you are allowed to simply be. So rest now, my sleep fellows, and let the quiet magic of Hogwarts carry you softly into a peaceful, restful sleep.